Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds on Premier League Matchday 21. Tom Rennie is back with us to analyze this match day. Tom, did you enjoy the derbies we had the previous weekend?
I did, yeah. The Manchester derby was very surprising. I got that one wrong. The North London derby was not surprising, and I got that one spot on. So I half enjoyed them.
Well, we have now Arsenal 8 points clear on the top of the table, but tonight we have Man City, Tottenham. So, guys, let's analyze all the games with Tom, of course, with you. Leave your comments, your tips, press the like, as always, subscribe to our channel, and now let's go on with the show. Well, in this video, we are going to analyze match day 21, but I'm sure everyone is waiting, Tom, for your tip, for your analysis for tonight's game. We have a very good one, Man City Tottenham, after the defeat suffered from Man City in the derby. Tottenham also looking really bad. Actually, now the gap with the top four is 5 points. Both lost the derbies. You expect, I guess, Man City to bounce back. Do you believe, by the way, Pep Guardiola saying that they cannot win the Premier League?
No, I don't believe him for a second. I don't see what else he's going to say in this scenario, 8 points behind. But I think it's worth noting to everyone watching this and to everyone, every pundit out there, from former players to people like me to the deep analysts of the game who love XG, there's so long to go. There is so long to go in this season. There's a lot played, sure. But Arsenal and Man City, tonight City make 19 games. That's the halfway point. So there's still half a season to go. And is anyone watching this going to tell me Manchester City can't win 19 games in a row? I'm not going to say that. And I don't think many people watching this are going to say that. So I don't believe Pep Guardiola. And I don't think he believes it either.
He became a victim very often, actually, when he started losing games. 2 defeats in a row for Man City, together with the League Cup against Southampton. Looking at tonight's game, Tom, what do you see in this very interesting? Of course, this is a top game, Man City-Tottenham.
Well, the amazing thing about this game is that Man City have lost 4 of the last 5 Premier League games against Tottenham, which is incredible. Like, Tottenham just have a way of beating Manchester City. They've done it under Antonio Conte, famously at the Etihad, but they also did it under Nuno Espirito Santo, famously at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, first game of last season, where the crowd were all singing, "Who is Harry Kane?" or words to that effect that I can't say on this show. So Tottenham have a way of playing that just breaks down Man City. What is it? You know what it is. It's low block. It's no possession. It's bypass midfield. It's look for Son over the top to find Harry Kane, or Kane to find Son over the top, and they hit them on the break. And Son has been the key player, the crucial player in this game for the past few seasons. The issue with that for Tottenham, if I can start with them, is that this is not that Tottenham. I don't think at the moment there is a great deal of belief in what Antonio Conte is trying to do, and the performance against Arsenal last week. Arsenal are very good, and we'll talk about that. But it was terrible. They were so poor. I do think Rodrigo Bentancur was probably their most complete midfielder, so not having him was huge for Tottenham, and he's being a bit underestimated. You know, if City don't have Kevin De Bruyne, for example, we would talk about it. So maybe that should be talked about more. But Kane, Son, even Kulusevski look well out of sorts. Defensively, quite suspect. Hugo Lloris has been a legend at Tottenham, but I think his time might have come to an end. So lots of issues for Tottenham to solve. The form is not great, and the performance against Arsenal was not great. For Manchester City, you know, it was bizarre last week, wasn't it, against Manchester United? They scored the opening goal in a great push start of the second half, but what else did they create? What else did they do? They were overwhelmed by Manchester United, which was fascinating, because I went to Man United last night, and United looked very, very slow, almost the opposite of what we saw against City the weekend just gone. So it's all up in the air. I think with City, what you're going to get, you know, everyone watching knows what we're going to get. They're going to get a total domination of possession. They'll do it with 10 players, not 11, because Haaland doesn't touch the ball a great deal. They'll try and get the ball to Haaland. Is that going to work in this game? Can Eric Dyer, Christian Romero see him marked out this game? That's going to be quite fascinating, I think. You know, there are 2 scenarios here. Tottenham stop City scoring. Can they stop City scoring? Recent pedigree says yes, they can. But if they don't and City score 1, I can see them scoring 2, 3, 4 and giving Tottenham a bit of a hammering in this game. So I just don't see Tottenham doing it again. I just don't see it. I think this game is going to be City winning both halves. I think Haaland gets back on the goal-scoring trail. And I think that the low block counter-attack falls apart the moment City score in the opening 10 minutes. So City score early, City win both halves, and City win without conceding.
Well, we have Bonjobu telling us over 2.5 goals and both teams to score. It pays surprisingly well. Both teams to score, actually, is 1.9. Could be a good option. Last season, as you mentioned, Tottenham won and we saw a 3-2 result in the Etihad. And we have, of course, Antonio Conte a bit under pressure because, as I said, they are 5 points behind Newcastle and that should be the goal of the season, qualifying for the Champions League again. Well, this is a top game we have on Thursday, and from a top game to another top game we have on the early kickoff on Saturday, Liverpool-Chelsea. Talking about the pedigree of the teams, of course, not talking about their form, because almost every club in the Premier League would love to face these two teams. They are awful. Liverpool really bad, playing away in this Premier League. Another defeat against Brighton. They are not improving. Luckily for them, they reacted in the FA Cup, beating Wolves. Whereas for Chelsea, as you were spot on, they were able to beat Crystal Palace in the weekend, but they lost to Fulham, they lost to City. Really bad, both clubs. But I guess if we have to trust one of these teams playing in Anfield, no, it should be Liverpool.
Yeah, I think so. There's a reason that Chelsea are around 4-5 to 1. That will drift out towards the weekend, and Liverpool will come down, I think, to about 1-5, 1-6. Look, Liverpool have had a tough time. We know they've had a tough time. Jurgen Klopp is sounding more and more miserable every time he talks, and the injury list continues to be a massive, massive issue. They've lost Sadio Mane. They've replaced him with players they simply can't keep fit. Still no Luis Diaz. Still no Diogo Jota for this game. Darwin Núñez unlikely to play. Roberto Firmino is out. So the attack is decimated. And Mo Salah is not hitting the heights of previous seasons because he was facilitated so well by Sadio Mane, I think. And I think we're appreciating that now. Sadio Mane's gone. The midfield looks poor. We all know that. They needed reinforcements and a rethink of what the midfield is. Plus, Virgil van Dijk is missing and continues to be out. So all those hallmarks and cornerstones of Liverpool's strongest team in the last 5 years are missing. The replacements aren't working, and Klopp seems miserable. So you've got all those issues in play going into this game. With Chelsea, I don't think they'd be happy me moaning about Liverpool's injury list. Chelsea supporters, no Conte, no Sterling, no Zakaria, no James, no Fofana, no Chilwell, no Breuer, no Pulisic, and Mendy as well. So that's 9 players, and I think maybe 5 of those might start in this game. You also look at Chelsea's away form as well. It's 2 points in the last 5 away games. A draw at Nottingham Forest and a draw at Brentford, a goalless draw. Beyond that, they lose away from home. So there are issues there. Look, I think Liverpool can still score goals. I think Cody Gakpo didn't do much last week, but at least a few minutes in the Premier League under his belt will do him a favour. I think Mo Salah hitting this really slow Chelsea backline on the break, getting in behind is going to be an issue. I don't know if Badiashile is going to play for Chelsea, but if he's got the number 4 shirt, I think. So they think he's a starter immediately. And I think he's got to come in for Koulibaly or Thiago Silva, who are incredibly slow. There's so many players out of form at Chelsea. It's frightening currently, for them at least. The way I see this game going is that Liverpool are going to do what Jurgen Klopp teams always do, like 90s teams used to do. Go, go, go. First few minutes, hit them. Try and score. Get after them. Do I think they will? Yeah, I do, actually. I think Liverpool will score early in this game. I think that blitz of the opposition will be effective in this game because their backs are against the wall. They know they've got to do something and they're up against top opposition. But I also don't see a scenario where Liverpool keep a clean sheet in this match. Despite the Chelsea offensive issues, they're still able to play people like Kai Havertz, still able to play people like Mateo Kovacic, still able to play incredibly talented players. The squad is so strong that I think that they, in their second team, should still be in the top 6. So I actually think quite high scoring this game. I think there's so many deficiencies for both teams. I think it's going to be a bit of a slobber knocker, a slugfest. So I would say both teams score, Both teams score in the first half. And I think you're looking for an over score line. Pick a winner you like, over 2.5 goals in the game. That's 2-1 either way, 3-2 either way. I think pick a winner, but look at the goals market, look at the shots market, and look at entertainment value as well. It's going to be a game well worth watching.
Well, both teams to score in the first half, as we were just checking, is 4. It pays really well. Of course, in the full time is around 1.6. We have Hassan telling us this game screams draw. The last 4 games between these two teams were draws. The last 2 goalless draws in the cup finals. Of course, was under Tuchel. Cup competition is a completely different story. Average Joe going for a double chance for Chelsea. Well, for sure, Liverpool, they are favorites, and both teams are in the middle of the table. So they have to react as soon as possible. Really negative results. We have a top weekend also in the Premier League. This one, because the next game is also very important. Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest for the relegation battle. Bournemouth is still losing, only 1 point away now from the bottom 3. And you mentioned, Tom, last week that it was a crucial game, Forest against Leicester City, to see if Forest can take off and leave the danger zone. And perhaps they were a bit lucky, but they won it with Johnson's brace. For this game, still the bookies think is going to be a draw. As you can see, the odds are really, really balanced.
Really balanced, really tight. And that's understandable, I think, because Bournemouth are a poor team. I think they will be relegated. They don't have a Premier League squad. They ended the game against Brentford last week with Ben Pearson and Joe Rothwell in midfield. That's not a Premier League quality team. And in terms of injuries, and even the players that are out, if they come back in, Solanke's missing again for this one. Do they make a great big Premier League difference? I don't think so. So you can see where they're trying to be active in the transfer market. But it's just not a Premier League squad. They don't have a Premier League manager, with all due respect, and he hasn't got the experience. That's the reason for it. And I just don't see Bournemouth staying up. I think at home this season, they have been able to frighten the horses a little bit. They have been able to get in and amongst 1 or 2 teams, but still it's not an amazing record. They thrashed Everton. They squeaked past Leicester. Can they do it against Forest? They can, but it's not something I'll be putting my money on. Why? Because Nottingham Forest, I think something's clicked there. I mentioned this to you last week when I picked them to win over Leicester City. Something has clicked at Nottingham Forest. I think there's no surprise that with the amount of additions they brought in during the summer, the doubts about the manager, the start of the season was a bit confused. And even the games they won, like the win against West Ham, didn't deserve to win that game. They got very lucky, and they just had 1 shot and they scored. And beyond that, they've struggled to get wins. But you watch the last couple of games, Brennan Johnson looks alive and alert. Awoniyi, when he's played, might be missing for this one. Looks like a striker again. I think Ryan Yates may well be missing for this one. Should be back, actually, but we will see. I think he has stopped looking like a lumpen kicker and looks like a proper footballer. Remo Freuler alongside him, similar. Joe Worrell's growing into a Premier League player. Dean Henderson out for this game, which could be crucial. Wayne Hennessy will come in, but has looked phenomenal in goal. So there's elements there that I think it's coming together for Nottingham Forest. I can see why the bookies are screaming draw here. Makes a lot of sense to me. I would avoid Bournemouth win. At 2.5, I don't think it's enough for a Bournemouth victory. I'd look at Brennan Johnson to be on the score sheet, be heavily involved. If you like the shots market, Brennan Johnson's had 2 shots on target in 3 of his last 5. So look at Brennan Johnson to score, have an impact, and have several shots on goal. He's been terrific last couple of games. I actually think quite low scoring. If you look at the wins that Forest have had this season, they've all been without conceding, and only one of them has scored more than 1 goal. So I think under 2.5 in the game. I think double chance Nottingham Forest, draw or win. At 2.6 just to win, that could be quite nice, and that'll rise again towards the weekend. So double chance it here. But I actually personally think Forest are going to win. I think Forest are going to win without conceding in a low-scoring game. So that's what I'll personally be going for, but cover yourself and go double chance Forest.
All right, Niels is asking you, and you've already answered to his question, actually. Brennan Johnson shots on target. There you have the stats that Tom just gave you. Draw no bet for Forest. That could be also a good option, around 2. It pays, and I have to say that the last 3 meetings between these two teams were won by Bournemouth. In this case, also, of course, because both teams are newly promoted to the Premier League. Next one, also important for the relegation, because Leicester is involved. Leicester City, Brighton, and they keep falling in the table. Leicester City, 4 consecutive defeats, only 1 goal scored in these games, and It's not a good idea facing Brighton right now because they are absolutely on fire, especially if they are meeting a Liverpool team. 3-0 against Liverpool, 1-4 against Everton.
Oh, yeah, there's no scenario I'll put my money on Leicester to win this. There's no way. And I think Leicester fans will probably agree. First, as ever with Leicester, we've got to do the injury list. James Justin, Samare, Johnny Evans, Ricardo Pereira, James Maddison, the crucial name, Ryan Bertrand, Ayose Perez, and Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. The last two are doubts, but the rest are out. And look, Leicester, they had a little revival before the World Cup and got a few points in the first half of the season. Why? James Maddison. You know, they were conceding goals and they continue to concede lots of goals. But offensively, they could always score. They could always score because he was the person scoring. He was the person creating. He was the person doing everything for Leicester going forward. He made everyone else look better. Harvey Barnes, even Patson Daka, he managed to get a tune out of him. Without James Maddison, it doesn't work for Leicester. And they know it too. And I think Maddison knows it too. Where is he? Is a question we should be asking moving forward. How injured is he? And is it more about trying to get a move to Newcastle, as the rumour mill suggests? I don't know that, but it is interesting that he's been missing for the entirety of this return of the Premier League, but was available for the World Cup. So issues with Leicester. And why are they down the bottom? Well, they're down the bottom the same reason Everton and West Ham and Wolverhampton Wanderers are. They don't win at home. They don't win home games. They've lost their last 3 in a row at home, just 2 victories at home all season long. And they also have stopped scoring goals for reasons I've mentioned. So I wouldn't go anywhere near Leicester for this game. Do not touch Leicester with any of your money. And you double that up with the fact that Brighton, 5th best team away from home in the Premier League this season, 5 victories away from home, 3 in a row away from home, all won under Roberto De Zerbi, who, I've said this to you before, I didn't really know a great deal about Roberto De Zerbi. I knew his name. I knew he'd been in charge of. But beyond that, I don't claim to be an expert on leagues that aren't the Premier League or English football. So I think we all had our doubts about him, the people like me in that basket. But he's got Brighton scoring. And how many times have I said to you for the last year or so, if Brighton could score, they'd be dangerous. They're scoring now, mate. They're scoring all sorts of goals, all types of goals. They believe they're going to score. And I think in Mitoma on the left wing, the Japanese international, they've got one of the stars of the Premier League this season. Not a long injury list, only Leandro Trossard of those who would start missing, and that's for kind of personal reasons. I think Brighton win here in all sorts of ways. I would go Brighton win, and they score a couple of goals as well. So look at the over 1.5 market. That's 2 goals or more for Brighton. Slightly more conservative than you could be. But I just don't see Leicester winning it. So Leicester, don't touch them. You could double chance Brighton if you want, but they're so low now. I mean, they were around 2-1 this morning. So what, 2.1 now, 2.2 on Oddspedia. I think you've got to look at ways that Brighton win. So I'd be looking at Brighton win with the scores level at half and Brighton go on to win it. Look at Mitoma to have multiple shots in this game. 1 shot on target in every single one of his last 7 matches. Look at that market. Look at Solly March as well. A brace and assist against Liverpool. Superb performance from Solly March. Just to score, he's around 7-1. So you could bundle that in on its own. But Brighton win without conceding, over 1.5. And look at the Mitoma and March markets.
Leicester, they are 3rd from bottom when they are playing at home. As you said, they are really poor. Alp is going for Brighton and goal fist. As you've said, Tom, the odds for Brighton to win are not that good, although it's not bad as well, 2.16 right now. So if you spice it up with something else, perhaps you can get even better odds. And the relegation battle continues in the south of England. We have Southampton, Aston Villa. Southampton, they are bottom of the Premier League, but really, really alive. 3 consecutive victories in all competitions. The last one against Everton. What a brace scored by War Pros. 2 beauties to keep Southampton alive. If they win this one, probably they will be out of the bottom 3. But this Aston Villa under Unai Emery is showing a great staff, Tom. They are doing great numbers so far. 4 victories in the last 6 Premier League games.
Yeah, look, and it was a great victory for Southampton last weekend. There's no doubt about that. But they're just not a good team. They don't play great football. They've got a brilliant technician in James Ward-Prowse, who, look, frankly, I'm not a fan of he's so good he could play for somebody else. But there comes a point when he's played 300-400 games for the club. I'd love to see him go somewhere else now. Like, go somewhere else and see what he can do in a good team. He spent his entire career, like Matt Letitia, at Southampton, and there's nothing more he can give them at this point. Incredible free kicks, incredible technician, so much better than every other player Southampton have got. It's almost embarrassing for them. At home, they are woeful. Woeful, woeful, woeful. One victory all season. Even the games they've drawn, Arsenal, West Ham, should have been beaten out of sight in those games. And they've lost their last three, and they were very, very poor in the defeat against Nottingham Forest. That was Forest's first victory away from home in the Premier League this season. And fair enough, the Brighton game and the Newcastle games, they're better than Southampton. You're probably going to lose those games. So all sorts of issues with Southampton. And if it's not James Ward-Prowse, then they ain't going to do it. So it might be worth, if they get a free kick, I hope you got money on James Ward-Prowse. I usually do. And for him to score a goal from outside the area is 7-1. So that might be worth your time this weekend, because that's all they're going to do, Southampton. Try and get fouled outside the penalty area, 30 yards from goal, and get James Ward-Prowse to score a free kick. That's about it. In terms of Aston Villa, sketchy form, better form, up to 25 points, only about 10-12 from safety now. So relegation fears are laid now for Aston Villa. It's now about focus. It's now about being inspired by Unai Emery. It's now about finding out what he can do with this team. And they're winning the marginal games. Marginal against Leeds United, but got the win done. Marginal against Tottenham, got the win done. Marginal against Brighton away from home, got the win there. Very, very impressive victory a few weeks ago, November. So I think you're looking here at a team on the up, and I think you're looking here at a team that have got one tactic. Lump it long, get a free kick, give it to James Ward-Prowse. Any issues about Aston Villa? In terms of players, I'd be concerned there's no John McGinn. I'd be concerned that Matty Cash is not getting a game. I'd be concerned Ollie Watkins might be missing because Danny Ings apparently is going to West Ham on a transfer today. So there might be some striking issues there. But I wouldn't touch Southampton. There's a reason they're around 3-1 to win at home, because no one fancies them. Only bet is James Ward-Prowse to score from outside the penalty area at 7-1. I'd be looking at Villa win here. Double chance it if you like, if you feel cautious. I think Villa win, and Villa win over 1.5. That's 2 or 3 they will score in this game. I think Villa will actually win quite comfortably. And I think that the only doubt in my mind is that Ings is going to be sold today, and Watkins might not be fit. But even then, with Leon Bailey, with Buendia, with the creative talent they've got, I just think they'll wipe the floor with Southampton this weekend.
Ings going to West Ham, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's done as we speak, as we're recording on Thursday morning. So he should be in the team for the next game.
Let's analyze it before we have to read the comments. Hassan is going for Aston Villa, but we have some people believing on Southampton. Idris is been criticizing you, Tom. Tom has been writing off Southampton, and they keep proving him wrong. Well, they are bottom of the table.
They're bottom of the league, yeah. I'm not sure they'll prove me that wrong. They're bottom of the league with 15 points and 1 win in 5. So I feel quite confident.
They are still the worst team in the league. Well, Ings going to West Ham next game. Drama in the east of London. West Ham, Everton, probably the loser loses the manager, no? As well, under pressure, David Moyes, Frank Lampard. I read this morning that Sean Dyche is in the waiting list with the cell phone on, just waiting for the call. Terrible numbers for both teams, to be honest. West Ham, 1 point in the last 7 games. Everton, another defeat at home against Southampton, 1 point in the last 6 games. Surprised to see these odds, to be honest, to see West Ham this favorite.
Well, the reason that's the case is that West Ham are so much better than this. The squad is so much better than this. The team is so much better than this. And I think people, me included, are just a bit like, what's happening? Like, what's going wrong? A team that have been top 7 for 2 years suddenly cannot win a game. And firstly, the reason they're in the relegation zone currently is because they can't win at home. The last 3 home games, Crystal Palace, Leicester City and Brentford. 1 goal scored, lost them all by conceding 2 goals to the opponents, and that's why they're there. The bad home form is why West Ham are there. Win one of those games, they're on 18 points. Win 2 of them games, they're on 21 points. They're basically where Aston Villa are, and there's no discussion. But those results were not just bad losses. They were terrible, terrible performances. And you couple that with the fact they can't win away, this is why they are where they are. As we speak, Danny Ings looks like he's signing for West Ham. We can't confirm that here. I don't have insider information on it. But if Danny Ings is signed, he walks into this team because West Ham's problem is scoring goals. Defensively, they actually aren't too bad. 25 goals conceded. If you compare that to Southampton, 34 goals conceded, Bournemouth, 41 goals conceded, Leeds, 33 goals conceded, you get my point. They've even got a better defensive record than Everton by 1 goal. It's the best defensive record in the bottom half West Ham have got. It's better than teams in the top half. So where's the problem? I don't know. It's because they can't score. Skamaka has been a bust. He's useless. Doesn't work in this team. Got to be sold. Mikel Antonio has lost all interest in playing football. And so that's the problem. And there's no replacement for Benrahma or Bowen. And Bowen, the drop-off in him has been staggering. Pathetic performances from Jarrod Bowen this season. If there was a replacement, he would and should be dropped. He's offered nothing. So the offense has let West Ham down. So if Danny Ings has come in, I think there is an enthusiasm about West Ham for this game because he's someone who can shoot straight. And that really is all. When a chance comes, they can't bury it. A chance comes, they can't score it. And that's dropped the confidence levels of everyone else. It is a bit of a you get sacked if you lose game. I think Frank Lampard might stay, and we'll get to Everton shortly. But David Moyes will go this weekend if West Ham don't win. And I throw a draw in there too, because this squad has no business being in the bottom of the table, bottom 3. I still don't think West Ham will get relegated, even if Moyes did stay, but I don't think he will. I think even if they win, Sean Dyche, I have my issues, but at the moment, everyone has stopped listening to David Moyes. His dithering has been such a problem for West Ham moving forward, and I think this is the end of the road for David Moyes, whatever happens in this game, the end of the road. I don't know how they're going to set up. I don't know. I mean, they can't do 4-2-3-1. It simply does not work. They've got to go 4-3-3. Paqueta, Rice, and preferably Flynn Downs in midfield. If not, Pablo Fornals. If Fornals is in midfield, he won't be up front. If he's up front, get rid of Jarrod Bowen, have Benrahma, Ings, and Fornals. That would be my 3. I don't think David Moyes is going to do that, but I just don't know. At this point, I think he's completely out of ideas, and any sort of victory is going to be a spot of luck. If Danny Ings is signed, go Danny Ings to score. With Everton, I actually think Frank Lampard will stay. And the reason he will stay is because they've sacked so many managers, Everton. I don't think they have any idea what to do in terms of replacing him. The funny thing is, if you go by the bookies, if West Ham sack David Moyes, the front runner to get the Everton job is David Moyes. So it just, I don't know. Frank Lampard is a very negative manager. They will go 5 at the back. If West Ham try diagonal pumps towards the centre of the attack line, they will not score in this game because Tarkowski, Cody, Holgate, head it out, no danger. If West Ham try and get behind them, they will have some joy. I think low scoring is the most obvious thing here. Go certainly under 2.5, maybe even go under 1.5. West Ham to win at 1.7 is useless. 1.7, 1.8. It might get to 2-1. It's useless. Don't touch it. I think you look at West Ham to win or Everton to win with 1 goal being scored. Exactly the same as last week, which came in. Pick a winner, go low scoring, and they win without conceding. Whoever scores 1 goal in this game, they win the match. I desperately hope it's West Ham. It should be West Ham. The bookies think it should be West Ham. The odds say it should be West Ham. But I am just not brave enough to say West Ham win. So low scoring, 1-0 either way. And that's it. I wish it wasn't happening.
So we could see David Moyes managing Everton in a couple of weeks, according to the bookies. That will be a twist, that's for sure. Hassan is going for Everton, double chance. And Alberto is saying that this is an avoid game. I am with you, to be honest.
I'm only giving you odds as I'm required to. Do not bet on this game.
Tough one. And I can see West Ham players don't playing for the manager. I think we all can see that thing as well. Well, and in London, we have also the late kickoff on Saturday in the south, Crystal Palace, Newcastle. You said, Tom, that you were in Selhurst Park watching that Man United Crystal Palace. What a goal scored by Olise in a free kick in the injury time. But Crystal Palace, they are not getting good results lately. Only 1 victory in the last 6 games. And we have Newcastle still on fire, winning, clean sheets, no goals conceded in the last 5. Brilliant performance in this first half of the season for Newcastle.
Yeah, look, I went to Crystal Palace last night, as you mentioned, on Wednesday night, and they got the draw against Manchester United, but they did not play well. It was a really poor performance. To have no Anderson at centre-half, who's likely missing for this game as well. They brought in Chris Richards, who wasn't as good. Nathaniel Klein and Tyrick Mitchell at fullback, I don't think are the required quality. In midfield, Will Hughes looked very leggy, nowhere near the player that Watford had 3 years ago. And up front, Jean-Philippe Mateta, he couldn't trap a bag of cement. So it's left to Elise and Wilfried Zaha to try and carry them upfield. And frankly, Elise had a terrible game against Manchester United. He didn't take on Luke Shaw hardly at all in the match. Incredible free kick, I agree with you completely. But apart from that, he offered nothing and they deserved to lose. The trouble is, so did Man United, something we'll talk about a little bit later. On their home form, Crystal Palace, it's always sketchy, and it's about what you'd expect. Half wins, half losses, and a couple of draws to boot in there as well, 4-2-4. Haven't won in their last 3. Poor against Fulham, poor against Tottenham, poor last night, though they got something from it. The issue is goals. The issue is goals for Crystal Palace. Just 11 goals scored at home this season. Wilfried Zaha up front has been tried, but it doesn't quite work. And Mateta and Eduardo, I don't think are good enough in terms of scoring goals in the Premier League regularly. They have their moments, of course. But I think that's going to be an issue for Patrick Vieira moving forward. There's a little lethargy about Palace that I think they will be concerned about. For Newcastle, nothing of the sort. The energy level is still incredibly high. The swarming of the opposition still incredibly impressive. The only doubt in this game for me is that Bruno Guimaraes is not playing. It's likely he's missing anyway. As we have it, he's very likely to miss the game. Picked up a knock last week. So much runs through him, but I think the confidence is there with everyone else. They could slip in Joe Willock, maybe. They could slip in Longstaff into that position. There are other players who could do the job and do the job effectively. They score goals, they create goals, they outrun you, and you just don't score against them. If you're a team that don't score goals, the last team you want to face is Newcastle United. 11 goals conceded all season long at this point. That's near insanity. Away from home, just 6 goals conceded. Leicester conceded that many goals in one game away from home this season, to give you context about how good that defensive record is. So what happens? Well, firstly, I wouldn't go Crystal Palace to score. No way. Wouldn't touch it. I would say the under 2.5 is likely. I see Crystal Palace not scoring. I see Newcastle scoring. Not many, though. I think they win with goals in the second half, but Newcastle win without conceding. That's the crucial element here.
Indeed, something that we've seen the previous weeks for Newcastle, also in the head-to-head between these two teams, as we were just checking. Also, Alberto is going for a low-scoring game. Also, Hassan is going for Newcastle, very good value. So perhaps you can join forces and do Newcastle and under or Newcastle and clean sheet, and you get good odds. And on Sunday, we have 3 games. Leeds, Brentford. Leeds, they are getting also closer to the relegation spots, only 2 points away from the bottom 3. They are winless in the last 5, and surprisingly, they are favorites against Brentford, a team that they are doing a great season, that they are getting really good victories. The last one against Bournemouth. Is true that when they play away, they are a bit weaker than when they play at home, but still, I could put similar odds to both teams, to be honest, not Leeds' favorite.
This is tough. This is one of the toughest picks of the weekend. And if you win on this one, you're going to win big, because you can see almost straight down the middle in terms of winners, in terms of who's going to score, in terms of corners. Everything is so evenly matched. As many Brentford games are, They're winning a lot of marginal games, and that's why they find themselves where they are. They do that because they've got Ivan Toney, 10 shots on target in his last 5 Premier League games, won a penalty by fouling a defender last week. That is incredible. 2 shots on target, Ivan Toney's around 3-1. I'd be looking at that, looking at Toney to score as well. For Leeds on the other side, look at Rodrigo. You didn't see Rodrigo. I didn't see Rodrigo doing this. I didn't rate him at all as a Premier League striker. Scored in the thrashing in midweek of Cardiff City in the FA Cup. Nonto as well, the teenage Italian, looks terrific. Taking people on, scoring goals. Dynamic, talented. That could be a massive, massive thing for Leeds United, not having to go in the transfer market now to buy someone like that, especially as well when you consider Crescencio Somerville, who was the young player doing it, out injured for the moment. Leeds' home form is an issue. Not because they don't score goals. I think they've scored at home this season a really decent amount, 15 goals. It's one of the best in the bottom half, second best behind Brighton in the home table. So they score plenty of goals, but they concede so many goals. They even let West Ham score 2 against them. 14 conceded at home is really, really poor to add to the 33 they've conceded overall. So what does that tell me? Goals, goals, goals. The game between these two earlier in the season was, 5-2 to Brentford at the GTEG. I think similar. Look at both teams scoring this game. Look at the Tony on Rodrigo markets. Tony to have 2 shots on target and to score will bring in around 4-5 to 1. That's very, very nice. The last match, there were 14 shots on target. I expect similar. Goals at both ends, over 2.5. Corners, I'd be looking at over 5 per team. Tony and Rodrigo both to have shots on target. And at that point, you just pick a winner. Personally, I would go Brentford. I wouldn't discount the draw on both teams score as well. That's 2-2, that's 3-3. I think it's going to be a brilliant game of football, but I just don't see Leeds coming away with all 3 points.
Brilliant game of football in Ellen Road. Probably it won't be that interesting. The next one, Man City Wolves. Lopetegui is a very, very negative manager. We've been saying that. But Wolves, they are out of the bottom 3. He was hired for this purpose, and only 1 defeat in the last 4 for Wolverhampton in the Premier League. In the last 5 games, we always saw under 2.5 goals. But of course, now is the Man City test. We have to see Man City against Tottenham first. But what do you expect, Tom? I guess Man City to thrash Wolves, or perhaps they have difficulties against a low block team.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough because if you look at the home victories, they thrashed Southampton back in October. Beyond that, got past Brighton 3-1, beat Fulham 2-1, lost against Brentford and drew against Everton. There's something not quite right about Man City at home right now. And we haven't got the time to kind of deep dive into it here, but I think there is a conversation that's being had about, is Erling Haaland affecting Man City in terms of swarming the opposition, as we know they like to do and they have done? Is him being a striker up front who don't want to get involved a great deal in the build-up play affecting them because one player is being marked by a centre-half and it's not now Sterling floating back and you don't know whether to go or not? And is it affecting Guardiola's tactics? Is he the best striker in European football, but not necessarily in the right team? I don't know if this is a definitive answer, but it's certainly an ongoing discussion that we don't quite have an answer to at this moment in time. I think that the performance against Man Utd last week, I will say, I thought was poor. It was poor. The midfield didn't look energetic. It didn't have complete control of the game, as we expect. The goals they conceded, though one of them was obviously offside, for goodness sake. But still.
Oh, my God.
We can't do that here. But, I mean, he's offside. He's clearly. Anyway.
It's
clear. So clear. Anyway. So they'll be aggrieved at that. But then they couldn't get back in the game, could they? You know, at 2-1 down, they were overwhelmed and couldn't get back into it. There are issues there. Wolverhampton Wanderers, I watched the game against West Ham last week, and they won the game. Did they deserve to win? No. Another one of those marginal games that West Ham keep on losing, that frankly Wolves were losing a lot. First goal was going to win it, as I mentioned to you last week. It was Wolves that got it and they won it. But I don't see a great deal of improvement under Lopetegui, I've got to say. I think they still look like a team. They can score a bit more, but they're defensively a little bit weaker. And the fact that West Ham couldn't score is not a great arbiter of how good the defense has been. In terms of defenders, they haven't signed anyone this week. And there's issues about Carver. They never really replaced Willy Bolly, I don't think. João Moutinho, I think, started to look his age in central midfield, and teams are running past him. Not West Ham, of course, but other teams, better teams, Man City-type teams. So, look, I think Man City will win. I do think Man City will win. Of course, I think they'll win. I think they're better than Wolverhampton Wanderers, despite the improvements Wolves have made. But I don't think Wolves are particularly effective on the break, despite the goal they scored against West Ham last week. Again, I think that was a quality of opposition thing. I think Man City will win, but I would go quite formulaic here. I'd actually look at the under 2.5. They win 2-0. They don't concede. Easy peasy. Not particularly thrilling. I think there's an element of getting the job done right now for Manchester City, which they've got to start doing again. As ever, double it up with Haaland being on the score sheet to maybe get you just under 2-1. But apart from that, I think Man City right now wouldn't be too adventurous.
2.8, if we go for under 2.5 goals in this Man City Wolves, I think no questions asked if this was an offside or not from Marcus Rashford. Let's talk a little bit about Man United. Arsenal, Man United, remember that the only defeat for Arsenal in this Premier League was in Old Trafford. Now everything is clear, good in the Gunner side. 8 points clear from Man City before they play against Spurs. I listened to Gary Neville, was saying that Man City is going to win the Premier League, Man United are going to be second, and Arsenal are going to be third. Perhaps he's right. We don't know yet, of course. But as you mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are only halfway through and every game is very important. And this one is another tough game for Arsenal. Let's see if they are able to beat Man United. What do you expect about this Arsenal-Man United, Tom?
Well, firstly, I don't know if our viewers know the expression tongue-in-cheek, but I do think Gary Neville was being a little bit facetious, a bit jokey, a bit jovial when he said that line about United finishing higher than Arsenal, because I think he's starting to come around to the idea, like all of us, that Arsenal are going to win the league and potentially reasonably comfortably. The performance against Tottenham, I went to the game last week, and it was just sensational performance from Martin Odegaard's total control of the midfield to Bukayo Saka roasting Sessegnon on the right-hand side, Martinelli, Doherty on the other. The performance of Eddie Nketiah, who could have scored early in the game. The solidity of defence, the control of Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka. I mean, all of it. The saves of Ramsdale. There's not one player that's not excelling right now at Arsenal. And you can only see them winning. You could only see them winning this game. One defeat all season, as you mentioned, against Manchester United in a game that since those that run VAR have said the opening goal for Arsenal was wrongly disallowed, that would have changed everything. At home, just one draw all season. That was the game against Newcastle United. Beyond that, they've won every single one of them. 8 goals conceded, 22 scored. Top of the table, home and away, 42 scored all season. Everyone scoring, everyone looks brilliant, and you can only see Arsenal winning. Couple of side bets. Look for Martin Odegaard to score first. I think he's been terrific. Martin Odegaard to score at any time. He's also a really intriguing bet. I think at this moment in time, he's the best player in the league. Bukayo Saka to have 2 shots on target at 3-1. He's had 1 or more shots on target in 4 of his last 5. So if you like the shots on target market, I think that the Bukayo Saka to do that could be really, really interesting. But Arsenal are going to score. They're going to score in this game. Another reason I think they'll score is that Man United, they're weird. They're weird right now. They're clearly not the finished article. So impressive against City. Brilliant performance, even though the equalising goal just should not have stood. But they were still the better team across the game. They were intense. Rashford looked terrific. They were threatening goal, all that sort of stuff. Look at the Rashford market. Beyond the game against Crystal Palace in midweek, he's scoring with regularity. And he's involved in everything good about Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes scoring regularly too. So look at the Bruno Fernandes to score and assist market. If you fancy Man United, that is. I personally don't. But the game against Palace, really slow, really sticky performance. And I'll tell you what's interesting. I hadn't seen a great deal of Casemiro in the flesh. We've all seen him on TV hundreds of times. But in the flesh, I've just not seen him a great deal. His reading of the game is exceptional. He was the best player on the field and it wasn't even close. But he can't move. He can't get around the pitch. And when Crystal Palace brought on Jeffrey Schlupp, he just kept running past him. If you put someone with energy up against Casemiro, you could be in trouble. And you add that to the fact that he's going to be suspended for this game. Who comes in? Scott McTominay. So you think of everything that Casemiro can't do, McTominay's now got to do that job, and he can't move, and he can't tackle, and they put him on weirdly up front the other day. So no Casemiro, his replacements can't do it. The team is now built around Casemiro, which is why I bring him up here. So you've got to bring someone in who can do that job. Don't move around a great deal, but stroke the ball around and be in the right place at the right time. There's no one else of that quality. That's another significant issue. I think they're still going to play in that way. And Wout Weghorst, well, he didn't touch the ball, I don't think, against Crystal Palace in the opposition half in the entire game. It all speaks to me of an Arsenal victory. Go for Arsenal victory. Arsenal don't concede in this game. If they do, it'll be a Rashford breakaway goal. But I just fancy Arsenal to get the job done. Look at the Saka and Odegaard markets, and Arsenal win without conceding.
Well, it's the first week where the bookies actually think Arsenal are going to win the Premier League. Now they are number one favorites ahead of Man City. Who would have said it?
Yeah.
In July, and who would have said also that Odegaard was going to become such an important player for a top team like Arsenal. Hassan is telling us no Casemiro. Arsenal to win and both teams to score. And Alberto is telling us, and actually I was checking and he's totally right, that Trossard is going to join Arsenal. Chelsea and Newcastle were fighting for Trossard, but it looks like the former Brighton player is going to join Arsenal. More firepower, more quality for Arsenal. And Crutzen is going for Man United Asian Handicap +1. So if they lose by 1 goal, you get your money back. Arsenal favorites to win this game. And as a bonus track of this great match day, we have on Monday Fulham Tottenham. And if Tottenham can't win in the Etihad and Fulham win this game, actually Fulham will overcome Tottenham in the standings and will touch European spots. Brilliant. Everything we can say about Fulham is amazing. Remember that they are a newly promoted team. It's true that they lost against Newcastle, but at home they are getting the results. The last victory was against Chelsea. And you've already analyzed, Tom, the Spurs after the defeat against Arsenal. If they lose also against Man City, I guess Conte will be really under pressure with this game.
Well, I think Antonio Conte sees out the season, whatever happens, but I don't think there are many scenarios, if any. He's Tottenham manager next season. He has not worked for them. They have not worked for him. And I think that this will be handshakes all round come the end of the season, whatever happens. In terms of Fulham, as we spoke about Tottenham earlier on, so impressive. You know, they were so unlucky against Newcastle last week. It's a deal at the back post. Should have done more to win that header. If they do that, they get a really impressive draw against Newcastle United, which is not easy to do this season. Trouble is they couldn't score against them. Again, not easy to do this season. But in Paulinho in midfield, I think they have one of the signings of last summer. Been terrific alongside Harrison Reed. Even without Mitrovic, they are winning. Bobby De Cordova-Reid, unsung hero of this campaign. Tim Ream has been terrific. Anthony Robinson has been terrific. So many positives about Fulham. And also in their home games as well. You know, their home form has been outstanding. That's one of the key reasons they're where they are. 5 home wins is what gets you up. And that's what they've got so far. Beating Chelsea, beating Southampton, both teams scoring, showing nerve when a game is level. That's so important. A nerve to attack. When you scored and conceded, and some teams wilt. Look at West Ham, look at Everton when they take the lead. They wilt in games. Not happening to Fulham. They get back on the front foot and go after you. And I think that's really interesting here. You know what Tottenham are going to do. Antonio Conte does not have a secondary tactic. They low block, they get it to Kane, runners over the top, they hope for the best. If it works, it can look very effective. Look at Crystal Palace. But overall, Fulham will be the better team in this game. Overall, Fulham would have 60 or 70% possession. If Fulham score in this match, the opening goal, I think they go on to win it. Look at the 2-1 market. Same scoreline for the last 2 games. Fulham 2-1, both teams score. Is really interesting here for me. And I think that will be the scoreline. Fulham victory is what I'm looking at. And if you're just looking at the odds, what is it? 3-1, 3.5? That might get to really 4 by Monday. Just take Fulham to win. Take your money and run. Low bet, big winnings. But if you want to make it a little bit more, both teams score.
Indeed, big winnings. We rarely see these high odds for every single outcome. For the draw is normal, but Tottenham to win 4.4 is good for a double chance, as Hassan is suggesting. Or if you go also for a straight victory of Fulham, 3.38 is really high odds. Well, what a match day, Tom? I had fun listening to your analysis, taking good notes. Later I go to my bookie, place my bets. Which one is your favorite one among all the games that you've analyzed?
Look, it's a safe bet for a reason, and I still think it's going to come in a lot more than it doesn't. Just take Manchester City win. Lump on a Manchester City win. The odds ain't great, but that's why you lump on. It's a safe bet.
Against Wolves, you have to say.
Against Wolves, yes.
And the ACCA?
Yeah, I got a bit too confident last week. I won 3 of my last 4 trebles going into last weekend. They got far too adventurous with an 11-1 treble. So I'm back down now to around 6-1. And I fancy this massively. Man City, obviously throw them in. That brings you up another percentage point. But also throw that in there with Brighton and Aston Villa. Brighton win at Leicester. Villa win at Southampton. Put City in there too. Brings you in over 6-1 treble. I really like that.
Yeah, this is a good one. Actually, Angel is suggesting to throw also Newcastle, for instance, to win with odds around 2. That could be an option. In Selhurst Park, well, Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for watching us. Remember, just press the like, subscribe, and follow us. We will see each other in the next week is FA Cup, but the following one, we will be back with the Premier League. Goodbye.